All right, Ms. Novak, I have your client's waiver. I'm going to mark it as court 2. What were you going to tell me?
Actually, I think Dave has something to add.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, our position, because Mr. Winfrey is not in custody, and that's the only conflict we've identified with Mr. Sadow, once we have, if Mr. Kitchens does decide to go ahead and waive that conflict, we would not have any further concerns about disqualification of Mr. Sadow beyond Mr. Kitchens' waiver, as Mr. Winfrey is not in custody at that time.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to deal with Mr. Winfrey today because he's not represented. So, okay, that's fine. Ms. Novak, do you still want me to go through the waiver with Mr. Kitchens?
I think we should.
I think we should as well, too. All right, Mr. Kitchens, let's see if we can unmute you. All right, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, sir, can I get you to raise your right hand for me, please? You solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you'll give in the case now and hearing to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God so affirm.
Yes, Your Honor.
One more time? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, you can put your hand down. Okay, Mr. Kitchens, I am holding a document which is entitled Conflict Waiver. Okay, I just want to go through that with you briefly, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. It starts out with your name. It says, my name is Sergio Kitchens. I'm a defendant in Fulton County Superior Court, case number 22 SC 1822773, which has been re-indicted under 22 SC 183572. Did you have an opportunity to take a look at the both indictments, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. And this is a RICO case with 28 defendants, including Mr. Winfrey. We're not going to talk about Mr. Winfrey today, but you do understand that, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You're represented by Mr. Sadow, Mr. Samuel, Mr. Garland, and Ms. Nove. Is that your understanding? Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. And it is your understanding that in late 2015, that Mr. Winfrey hired Mr. Sadow in Cobb County Superior Court case number 15-9-276528 to appeal his case to the Georgia Court of Appeals and then the Georgia Supreme Court. Is that your understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. This is in the conflict waiver I'm holding up right here, and it bears your signature on the second page, and the witness is Ms. Nove. This is the document I'm reading from. So did you have an opportunity to take a look at this document and sign this document?
Yes, I did.
It would have been dated the 10th of June of this year. So I'm holding up the documents that's been submitted to the court. So that's the document I'm referring, okay? As court 2.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. The Supreme Court reversed his conviction in Winfrey versus the state 304 Georgia 94. And that's further been cited at 816 Southeast 2nd 456 2018. And then Mr. Sadow then represented Mr. Winfrey in Cobb County where his offered plea was entered. Is that your understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. It further goes on, your waiver further goes on to say that Mr. Sadow continued to represent you in this RICO case that's here in Fulton County after and under the 2 indictment numbers that the court has already referenced. So you've spoken to Ms. Nove and discussed the types of potential conflicts that could come up with a lawyer who previously represents a defendant who later represents another defendant in a case in which both are co-defendants. So did you have an opportunity to speak with her to your satisfaction on that issue?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. The waiver also further enumerates 6 points. The first one is the state could offer to dismiss the case against one defendant, reduce the charges, or agree to a lower punishment if that co-defendant would testify against the other. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
You also understand, number 2, that a witness might say something or evidence might come in helpful to one co-defendant but harmful to the other.
Yes,
She talked with you about that, correct?
Yes.
All right, number 3. The lawyer may want to use a defense theory, witness, evidence, or argument that is helpful to the lawyer's current client, but harmful to the lawyer's former client. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
4, during closing argument, the lawyer may want to argue that the evidence against his current client is less than evidence against the former client. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor. I understand.
All right. And then number 5, if there's sentencing, the lawyer may want to argue that his current client is less culpable than his former client. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then number 6, the lawyer may have learned something from the former client that helps the current client but hurts the former client. You understand that?
Yes, sir, I understand, Your Honor.
All right. So Ms. Nove went over examples of how these potential conflicts might come up in this case. Is that correct with you? Mr. Kitchens, are you there? I froze up, I think. Oh, he's back. Okay. All right, Mr. Kitchens, what was the last, can you hear me?
Yeah.
What was the last thing you heard me say?
The last one,
I can't hear you, sir.
the last I didn't hear what you said.
All right, let me go over this last part here. The last thing I said was that Ms. Nove, did she go over examples of how these possible conflicts, the ones that I've enumerated in 1 through 6 on your waiver, might come up in this case? Did she talk with you about those? Give you some examples?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Your waiver goes on to say that you understand these potential conflicts. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, but you are certain that no actual conflict exists, and that no actual conflict will ever exist.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's your understanding. All right, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. Do you fully understand what Ms. Nove explained to you?
Yes, Your Honor, I fully understand.
Okay. Do you understand you have the right to select a different lawyer?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand.
However, you don't want you don't want a different lawyer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You want Mr. Sadow to fight for your innocence and freedom. Is that right? That's what it says in the waiver. He's back. Okay. Good. Well, okay. The last thing I said, sir, was you choose Mr. Sadow to fight for your innocence and freedom. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
All right, and you waive any potential conflict and ask that the court preserve your right to choose the lawyer who you want to protect you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
And you make this statement voluntarily, knowingly, and freely in the presence of Ms. Nove. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, and you declare under the penalty of perjury that the foregoing waiver is true and correct. Is that right? Did you hear the last thing I said, Mr. Kitchens?
Declare.
You heard me? Okay, so you declare under the penalty of perjury that the foregoing waiver is true and correct. Correct? Is that right?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Do you offer this statement freely?
Yes.
Did anyone force, trick, or otherwise cajole you into entering this waiver?
Yes, I heard you, Your Honor.
Let me go through this one more time. Do you offer this statement freely and voluntarily? No one otherwise forced or tricked you or in entering this waiver. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. All right. Anything else, Ms. Nove or Mr. Geary? I did already.
missed it, that's my ignorance, I apologize.
Okay, no problem. No worry. Okay, anything else? Anything else is, in terms of the waiver? Okay, all right. Any questions on behalf of the state or anything that you want me to inquire about?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor. We believe that that satisfies any conflict from Mr. Sadow. And should Mr. Winfrey be captured, we would just ask the court to inquire of him at that time.
Yeah, I'll inquire about Mr. Winfrey when he becomes within the breast of the and jurisdiction of the court. Mr. Kitchens, I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Sadow continue to represent you, understanding that in the future, if a conflict does arise, you are welcome to raise that to the court, or if I see it, I may raise it on my own motion or depending upon the circumstances in this case, okay? I think he's still frozen.
He said, he tried to say okay, and he froze.
All right, Mr. Kitchens, did you hear the last thing?
Yes, Sean, I heard what you said. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Anything else in regards to Mr. Kitchens? Can we rearrange him? Okay, all right, okay. Mr. Garland, would you like to otherwise arraign your client on the new indictment, that being 22 SC 183572?
We'd like to address that now when we waive formal arraignment.
Okay, I will authorize for you to waive formal arraignment. I'll enter a not guilty plea on behalf of your client. I'll otherwise give you 10 days upon the receipt of new discovery to file any other additional motions. Do you have any other issues, sir?
If we got 30, Your Honor.
30. Okay, 30. All right, 30.
It's because you like me so much.
Okay, all right, anything else? I got a mask on, thankfully. All right, okay, anything else?
And I think we've worked with the state where they've got our hard drive, so we'll get the remainder of the discovery.
Do you have any other motions outstanding that need to be heard on the 8th of September, madam?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure. All right, okay, all right. Unless you have anything else, then I will excuse Mr. Kitchens and excuse you all, counsels, and thank you for your patience, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, okay, cool. All right.